Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
Hi guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send show. This is episode number 193, and I'm here today with Roel. Hey Roel, how are you?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. So today we'll finish our series on the Mobility Field Day 4 event, and we'll talk about Fortinet.
All right.
So we went to Fortinet, and Chris Heinz he's like the director of wireless product and solutions over there. He presented on a couple of different things he wanted to bring us up to date on, stuff they're working on, wireless related, obviously. And so it was interesting to know what Fortinet is doing on the wireless side, right? Because Fortinet is known for their security solutions. And he told us the story of how they started working on wireless solutions because their customers wanted to secure their wireless networks. So they're like, okay, so we might just as well provide Wi-Fi as well.
Yeah, completely makes sense.
Yeah, so that was funny. And nowadays, if you look at the solution that they provide, they can pretty much do everything, right? It's pretty impressive. Like that's the impression I had when I was listening to him. I was like, whoa, that's, they have 40 everything.
Yeah.
They have a solution for everything.
Everything starts with 40.
Yeah, they like to use a 40 in front of all of their solutions. So you have 40 Wi-Fi, 40 WLC, and 40 NAC, and all of these. So people joke a lot with that. I think they joke internally with that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. And Lee has a post where he's 40 much to appreciate.
40 much to appreciate. Yeah, that's pretty nice.
But they are one of the few vendors that have end-to-end solutions, and it's just a lot of things across the board. And if you look at their product line, they really connect well with each other, right? And as far as putting that into your network and having them talk to each other, it looks like it's very smooth.
Yeah, Chris actually talked about a solution that they call the extended branch office, where you could have, they provide pretty much everything for a branch office, and you have your FortiGate, which is like their flagship product, the firewall, and you can control a lot of things from the firewall. Mm-hmm. So let's say you install access points in your branch office, you can manage those access points from your firewall. So everything is very well integrated, and you can deploy all of your 40 solutions in your branch office. You manage them in a centralized location, and it sounds very easy.
Yeah, I would say also cost effective. Like if you don't need to purchase a separate controller, you can use the FortiGate to manage some of those branch APs, and then as you grow, you could probably move into a solution that's more robust. You've got more fine-grained tuning that you can do with the wireless controller from Fortinet. So there's a lot of options and a lot of things you can do, but security, I think, is their strong point that ties into every single one of their products.
Yeah, you get a solution that's secure and that's easy to manage. When I think about small to medium companies, I think it's a very good selling point, especially if you're MSP and you provide the services. You can just install, configure everything from the same platform, and then they also have the cloud access where you can just connect to their equipment via the cloud, and then you can monitor remotely how the customer's network is doing.
Yeah, exactly. And don't think that these guys only work with small and medium businesses. They have solutions that are really large for large scale. So, but I think this episode will just try to focus on the wireless and then kind of tie in some of the other things that might look pretty good for, a little bit outside of the wireless realm.
Yeah, and if you want to hear more about the security, we actually recorded an episode here earlier this year in January with Chris when he came on the podcast and he talked about security beyond the PHY. And it's episode number 155. So you can always go back, 155, and then listen to Chris talk about the security a little bit more in details. So what's new with Fortinet on the Wi-Fi side? First of all, they have their Wi-Fi 6 access points, right? So just like any other vendor out there now, they provide Wi-Fi 6 access points. They have two new models. They call them the FortiAP U431F and the FortiAP U433F. One is pretty much, one has integrated antennas. The other one has external antennas. And what's very interesting with this access point is the fact that it has 3 radios, right? But what's even more interesting, because that has been done before, the 3 radio access point has been done before. But what's even more interesting to me is that the way you configure those radios. So you could have one radio on 5 gigahertz, one radio on 2.4, and the third one just scanning to do your analysis. Monitoring, or you could have the 2 radios in the 5 gigahertz mode, so like a dual 5 gig AP.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and the third radio just scanning the environment. Or what you can have, the third model, which is pretty interesting, is you can have a dual 5 gig AP and use the third AP to provide service on the 2.4.
Yeah, that's really, and it steps it down to about a 2x2, because that third radio is a 2x2 radio. But I really like the flexibility in that configuration, because if you want to keep that third radio as your security scanning radio, you can do that. And then maybe for some APs, you can enable the 2.4 and still have a dual 5 gig. I think that flexibility is very good.
Yeah, I really like that as well. You're right. In an environment where you have a lot of APs, you might not need all of the third radios to do the monitoring. Maybe you can just do, one every second AP. And then you have, and maybe you don't need all the APs to do 2.4. Maybe you only need one every second AP to do 2.4. So you can just alternate and make your design work to provide dual 5 gig and 2.4 at the same time.
Yeah, so I was looking at this because only looking at it from the slides, I'm wondering if they're all AX capable. Is that third radio AX capable? So the 2.4, you think that?
No.
Okay.
No, the 2.4 is not AX. So if you use it for 2.4 access, it will be N, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's only the third radio. The third radio is not AX capable. Just looking at the data sheet there, the first radio, you can make that 2.4 and it's an AX radio. So radio 1 and 2 have the AX capabilities, while the third radio is just more AC, NAC, more of their scanning radio. And it also still has these APs have BLE built in as well. So if you need that, I don't know if Fortinet actually goes into detail of how you could use that BLE radio, but the Ethernet interface is actually a gig or 2.5 gig.
Yeah, and then they also have I don't know the answer, but they also have like 10 antennas. So my question would be like, could you use different antennas for different radios? My thought would be, outdoor network where you could use 1 5 gig radios with directional antenna to connect back to a backhaul, and use the second radio on 5 gigahertz with omnis to provide service on 5 gigahertz.
Yeah.
If you have 10 antennas, 10 ports for the antennas, maybe you can leverage that and use different type of antenna. I don't know if you can, but that would be nice.
And did you get to physically see the AP at their office? Was it a really large AP?
Yes, it's not a small one. Yeah, I can't remember exactly the size, but it's not huge, but it's not small either. It's like typical size.
Okay, yeah, just wondering because it says it's got 10 internal or 10 external APs. Just wanted to see how
like if
large
you're a
that
missed
was.
AP, it's kind of like the same size of a missed AP, I would
Okay,
say. Yeah. In the show notes, we actually put a link to the datasheet. So if you want to know all the details about that AP, you can go check it out. I'm sure they have the measurements of the access point, and they actually had it at the office in Fortinet, and we were able to meet the engineer working on the solution. That was pretty cool.
And were you able to test it out? Did you connect to it with your phone?
No, the AP was disconnected.
Okay.
The AP was on his desk. Maybe we'll get to test it one day. I do have a 40 gate firewall at home, so I guess I could connect it to it and test it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if my FortiGate as well could support the Wi-Fi 6 AP. And since there's a third radio on there, I wonder if you could keep that to do maybe some sniffing and be able to sniff those Wi-Fi 6 frames over the air.
Well, if you use the third radio, it's not an AX radio.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting it's not an AX radio.
Good thoughts. But we'll talk about that in a while, because in the podcast we have they actually improved a little bit of some of their product.
Okay.
Wi-Fi.
Because I was thinking maybe make the first radio the sniffer.
I don't know if you can do that though.
Okay.
Because in the table of how they configure the modes, it's only the third radio that can do the scanning.
Got it.
But maybe, I don't know. Maybe you can choose the first one.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's the new AP, Wi-Fi 6 AP. It's really cool. I like the 3 radio mode, and we'll see how they leverage that into their overall solution. Mm-hmm. The second innovation is what they call, that's pretty much what we'll talk about right now. It's called the FortiWLM, and they use that. It's an RF manager, and they use that tool to manage the RF. So it's a product that would come along the controller, and that would gather information from the APs, information from the scanning radios, information from the client devices connected to the Wi-Fi, and show you an overall overview of what the health of your Wi-Fi network looks like. I guess you could compare it to one of these systems like Prime or Airwave, those systems a little bit, but they put the focus and the emphasis on the RF.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So they have actually different sections on there. It's pretty much a VM or an appliance that you connect you install in your network, gather the information from the controllers, the APs, and the clients, and then you have a website you go to, a web interface, and then they present the results to you in different dashboards. And on this UI, they have 4 different sections. Sorry, they have one that's called Network, where you'll be able to see the topology, the trends, the application use, the location of your client, and all. The second section is called Service Assurance. So here you'll be able to see the connectivity, the throughputs, the QoS if you have any voice. Then you have the spectrum, right? So you'll be able to see if you have any activity interference events. You'll be able to monitor your channel utilization. You'll be able to graph it over time. You'll be able to look at your spectrogram as well. Okay. And then the last section, obviously, it's Fortinet, so we must have, a security section.
Security module.
So
yes.
So it's a wireless IPS, right? Intrusion prevention system.
All the rogues and whatnot.
Yeah, you can see the rogue, predefined custom signatures, alert logs, alert 10 graphs. So you can monitor all of this using the same UI.
And so right. I assume the actual packet captures then follow along with this product.
Yes. I don't know if you can actually retrieve the packet captures from there. But I would guess they have something, that supports that.
Yeah, I think it would fall under probably the assurance part. Although it'd be interesting to see how the product actually works well with your wireless network, because it looks like there are a lot of the metrics that people look for, right? number of devices, which devices have low quality signal, like low signal or a lot of retries, and then tie that into the security. You'll want to try to control those rogue APs and see what you. I wonder what those abilities are there in handling rogues, because you could alert on it, but I wonder if this WLM will act on it as well.
Yeah, so when you look at the dashboard, and if you guys go back to the videos, I forgot to mention it, but in the show notes we'll put the link to the videos of the Mobility Field Day presentation, so you can go back. They actually do a demo of the solution. They go through different tabs, and they show you what you can do with the tool. And you'll see the UI is pretty nice. Okay. Except at one point they were using Flash.
Oh.
So yeah, Hayden was like, "Is there a plan to get rid of Flash?"
To get rid of it,
and Chris is like, "Yes,"
because I think Google Chrome is going to. They're not going to support Flash in 2020.
Yeah, we're moving away from Flash, right, and going to HTML5.
Yeah, exactly.
JavaScript and this stuff. Yeah. So, anyways, you'll be able to get a glimpse of the EOI, and then this product. I think it's worth to mention that it's not mandatory to have it, right? You can still have some information if you have a controller, a dedicated controller, but that will just help you if you have more controllers, or that will help you if you have a more challenging RF environment and you want to get more data out of that RF environment. That will help you to consolidate everything and follow your the health of the network. Make sure it doesn't deviate from your baselines.
Okay.
And it communicates with the 40 WLC or the FortiGate, depending on how you're managing your APs, using SNMP. And it does a pooling every 10 minutes by default. And you can change that pooling to be like 1 minute if you want the minimum.
Okay.
Or if you want more pooling.
But it's still using SNMP in order to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's still using SNMP.
Got it.
Okay, so it acts a lot like the other management system we know of, and you can install it on a VM if you want somewhere on your network.
Okay, yeah, I'm curious to compare this with other solutions, and then also how different it is when you've got your controller, and then when would you actually then change your workflow to go to the 40 WLM. And then when would you go back? So I wonder if what the workflow looks like and what are the different conditions of when you use this product.
Yeah, I think someone asked this question, and Chris was saying that it depends on your environment, and they really created this tool for a challenging RF environment.
Okay, yeah, because I wonder what their definition is of a challenging RF environment.
Well, it's he was saying if you have high density, for example, the university would be a challenging RF environment, okay. Right? It's you don't always have the same quantity of devices. It come and goes. You have a high density areas. You have some outdoor areas. Maybe you're using some external antennas in a warehouse, something like that. That would be considered complex environment.
Okay.
Right? Maybe if you design a Wi-Fi for a typical office environment and you have 2 floors in your office and you have 40 APs per floor, maybe that's not considered challenging from the RF standpoint. That's what I would guess.
Okay.
Ultimately, I mean, as a customer, you're going to make the decision to go with it or not.
Yeah.
It would just help you to get more data out of your Wi-Fi network, right? If you think it's critical for your operations. And you can definitely do packet captures from it. And also, to look back on the Wi-Fi 6 AP, it will use the third radio, the scanning radio, to gather some of this data.
To populate all this data. That's how accurate it would be if you were to utilize that third scanning radio. You'd get a lot of good information out of it.
Yeah. And then if you're not, it works like the other vendors. It does off scanning, a scan, Can you say that? Off scanning scan. So he goes off channel to scan. I think that's what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
supposed to
Because
say.
otherwise, other vendors would be using the same radio that services the clients, whereas this third radio could be your dedicated scanner. So the radios serving your clients don't have to go off channel to do their scanning.
Here you go. Thank you, Roel. Thank you for saving me. Yeah. So so you'll definitely get more data out of it if you have a dedicated scanning radio that just gather the data for the WLM. So I think it was a nice product. For the Spectrum also, what they do is they use they have a Broadcom chipset that's the Wi-Fi chipset, right? The Wi-Fi Broadcom chipset that's able to detect some signatures, and they leverage that to tell you if the Wi-Fi, if the AP is seeing some Bluetooth or some other activity on the frequencies.
Okay.
So that you'll see that in the Spectrum data.
Cool.
And then for the service insurance, they're trying to do, same as the other vendors. They're trying to establish a baseline, right? And so you can establish a baseline, you can test it, and then if you have if you want to schedule some tests, you can do that. It will run it out of your third radio in your AP, and also if you have some deviation from that baseline, you can get alerted, and you can know about it.
Yeah, I think that's really neat to be able to at least utilize that third radio as another client, just for testing purposes, right? It's still from the perspective of the AP since they'll be up in the ceiling, but at least you could get information on those tests and even see with their graphs if there's high loss or high retries. I like that they put that up front on the dashboard.
And it allows us to be a little bit more proactive on the network. Instead of waiting for the clients or the users to complain, which is typically what we do, right?
Yeah. Instead of being reactive, but and you don't have to buy separate sensors to do this test. But I wonder if they're going to get those requests if people want those, like a dedicated sensor to put somewhere around in the office. But I think this is a good start, especially since you've got a third radio that's used for this kind of purpose.
And I mean, they can create a 4T sensor, right? If you think about it, like they have 4T camera.
Yeah.
So they could leverage this camera to be a sensor too, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. They have 40 everything. Maybe they can leverage some of the stuff they have to do those tests in the future.
Yeah, they actually have something that we'll talk about that they could use as a test when we get there.
You're right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
We'll get there.
All right, moving on to the next section. It's let me see. Right before we talk about that, I wanted to mention something. So if you install 40 APs in your environment, you have different ways to manage them. You can use your FortiGate. If you have a firewall FortiGate, you can use the FortiGate actually to manage them. So you don't need a controller. The FortiGate is the controller. So you go on the FortiGate, you configure your Wi-Fi networks and so on, and you can pretty much have your APs managed there. Or you can buy a FortiWLC. So it's like a controller, dedicated controller, and you can use that to manage your APs. Or you can manage them in the cloud.
Yeah, plenty of options there. And it doesn't matter which AP you have, right? Whatever AP you have will work with any of those three solutions.
I'm not sure. I would guess so, yeah.
That's my guess too, but we should probably confirm that.
But listen to this. Let's say you want to use your FortiGate to manage your APs, you could do that. But let's say you still want to be able to access that from the cloud. You can use the cloud to manage your FortiGate. So now you're using the cloud to manage your APs. You see that? So it's very flexible. You can do a lot of things.
Okay, yeah.
All right, moving on. Next section is IoT, right? So they talked a little bit about IoT, especially at the beginning when they talked about the extended branch office. They were talking about, bringing that IoT into their solution or being able to have visibility on the IoT, especially for the security standpoint, right? IoT is big. It's a big threat for security. So Fortinet wanted to work on that to have a way to being able to identify what type of network is connecting, what type of device is connected to the network. So they work on their NAC solution, the 4D NAC, in order to improve the solution, I guess, so we can better identify the profile of all the endpoint and IoT devices connected to the network, so they can better, treat them from a security standpoint or segment them on the network, so it minimizes the security risk for the enterprise network.
Yeah, it's basically what I'd expect from a NAC solution, and how it would tie into your wireless and wired network.
Yeah, exactly. So they're looking at different things. They have actually a very good diagram to explain their NAC solutions, and it's like a pie chart, and they have 3 different sections. The first one is visibility. So how do you get visibility on the devices you have on the network? So to do that, they use DHCP, the MDM, they use CLIS and MPC slug. So anything they can gather from those devices, they'll try to leverage and define and find out what they are. So they'll know it's an Xbox, they'll know it's a it's a Samsung phone. They'll know what connects to the network based on those inputs, right? And then they'll leverage that to have better visibility into the network. And Chris was talking about the fact that if you use the FortiNAC and you find out that it's not able to detect your device, let us know. So let Fortinet know, so they can actually improve their system and then add those signatures into the system, so it's able to detect everything.
And I think this is why their end-to-end solution is a good solution, because it would all tie into each other, where you've got your FortiGate, which you have your perimeter security, which could kind of hold a lot of different roles. Even some of this functionality of a NAC you could find in a FortiGate. But then if you need a full blown NAC system, then the FortiNAC would actually be the one to use, but still tie into the rest of the network components like your firewalls, your switches, and your APs. So I think this is for those who need the much more stronger security on their network and be able to figure out what is on their network and then control it from that standpoint.
Yeah, and it's very, if you think about it, if you have a FortiNAC and a FortiGate to control your APs, when the Xbox connect to the network, let's say, the FortiNAC will be able to say it's an Xbox, and after that, it will be able to push some configurations to the FortiGate, right? And the FortiGate will be able to create the firewall rules, will be able to configure the APs properly and implement all those security rules and policies.
Yeah, exactly. So I think some people may be afraid to have some sort of vendor lock-in if they got everything from one vendor. But from my perspective, sometimes these types of applications work well when the vendor does each of them well, because then now you don't have a third-party vendor and that vendor has to catch up with a different vendor that's on your network because they've made a change. The other vendor has to make a change or update in order to address whatever new functionality they've provided. That's why I like Fortinet's product line, because it all really integrates well with each other.
Yeah, so that would be like a debate for a full other episode.
The vendor lock-in.
The vendor lock-in,
which we all are vendor locked in with our wireless networks, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not everyone.
Yeah.
Remember OpenConfig and Google?
Yeah,
and all that?
But I think Google's the only one doing that.
Anyway, but it goes beyond the Wi-Fi, right? In your network, you have firewalls, you have other systems.
Yeah, exactly. And being able to push that policy easily, like you identify something on your Fortinet and then you go, okay, this needs to be segmented, or I need to take this off the network somehow. You can easily push that on your FortiGate without having to, I guess, log into the FortiGate, right? You can just push it from one location.
Well, what I would think is it would be automatic.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you don't have to.
Okay.
You know, if you identify it on a NAC, you don't then have to log into the FortiGate and then run policies there. The policy just gets pushed from the NAC, and I think that's what makes it a lot easier.
And let's say if it's an unknown device, it just blocks the network access by default, and then sends you a message on Slack.
Oh, it does? Oh, nice.
Unknown. I don't know if it does, but that would be nice, right?
Yeah.
Unknown device, beep, beep. And then you go back like, hey, what's this?
Or then even better, you can just say something in Slack and then it pushes it to the NAC and then...
Yeah, and you can respond, you say, authorized device.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Anyway, we're talking about the future. All right, so going back to the Fortinet, so we have the three pieces: visibility, control, response. So visibility is what we talked about, right? Being able to identify, what connects to your device. Then control would be the dynamic, role-based access, dynamic network segmentation. If your Fortinet is able to talk to the rest of your network, let's say the FortiGate, and then after that you have the response. And the response is what they try to do is they try to see if those new network policies are working properly, right? So that's actually a nice piece of it. So Fortinet communicates with the network to make sure that it's configured properly. Because when you start doing the automation and stuff like that, if you don't validate, sometimes you can break networks.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if you've got a NAC that's highly integrated into your network, there's going to be some problems where maybe it misclassifies something, right? And then blocks a whole set of devices for whatever reason. I mean, it's been a while since I've worked with a NAC appliance, and the last time I did, it wasn't that easy to set up. So maybe it's developed since then, and now they're a lot easier to use. And since they integrate with other products, it makes more sense. And I think having that validation piece is really important. So I'd like to see how it actually works on a full blown network.
And then they have like policy-based containment if something happens, and they also like keep on doing the risk analysis. When you have clients coming in, to make sure that they're not bringing like one specific device is not bringing some sort of threats. So let's say you have, you keep on connecting printers to the network, and then there's the same printer, but one of them is compromised, right? So because it's the same device, the Fortinet will apply the same policies. But then if the compromised printer starts to do funny stuff on the network, they'll be able to identify that and contain it. So that's what the response is all about.
Okay, so it sounds like it somehow keeps a like posture check of these devices. It has a baseline, and so when they deviate from how they normally act, they may be able to detect that.
Yeah, they call this risk analysis. So I don't really know how it works in the background. I don't know if they use only the NAC for that, or maybe they use it for the gate as well. And they look at the traffic.
Okay.
But yeah, they're able to do that. So the Fortinet is, it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice how it integrates with the other rest of the network, and then it can handle. They focus on the IoT because IoT is, it brings a lot of new devices that we don't know on the network, and it's also tied to wireless because usually the IoT devices connect to the Wi-Fi through the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I'm curious how much of the Fortinet actually will push policies straight to the AP, like maybe some sort of exclusion list where it blocks off the device from actually associating onto the wireless. I don't know. Maybe we'll see some more data in the future about this.
Yeah, I'm sure you can go on the Fortinet website and get more data on this one. I don't think they talked about that, how they do it.
Okay.
But yeah. And then the last section we talked about was the innovation piece of it. And it was actually super cool to finish on that note. And it was super nice from Chris to share some of the work that they're doing, in their research and development team. And so Chris just wanted to share with us some of the cool projects they're working on for the future of their product line. He did tell us that everything was still under development, like they didn't even know if it was going to become actual viable products. So it's still like prototype they're working on. But he shared a couple of projects that we're working on. The first one is the Forti robot.
Yeah, this is what we were referring to earlier.
Yeah, that's the one we were talking earlier. Maybe that could be a sensor to the Wi-Fi. And the Forti robot, we actually got to see it and to see it in real life. I took a picture, so if you go to the show notes, you'll see the picture of what the robot looked like. And the goal for the robot would be to have a device that can automatically verify the wireless coverage.
Yeah, does the validation surveys for you, right?
It does validation survey for you. It has a whole bunch of sensors, so it can actually map out the floor plan for you.
Nice.
So you don't have to give it a floor plan and give it a path. It will just, with the sensors, it will just go around or go everywhere it can. I think it reminded me of the vacuum cleaners.
Oh, the Roombas.
The one that have sensors and they just go everywhere, and then when they see a wall, they turn.
They just turn. Yeah.
I think it's kind of like the idea, but they're able to map everything for you, measure the signal, and then generate a heat map at the end. Yeah,
that's pretty neat, and it actually reminds me also of those robots at the mall. Those security robots, like they just move around. They've got a security camera, and I've
never seen them.
You never seen them? I guess they're only big in the U.S., but
only in the Silicon Valley.
Only in Silicon Valley where this but they're pretty large robots. Like they're about my height, and so I was thinking, well, maybe you could have that robot also do a validation survey, since it's just roaming around in the mall, right? You could have something like that do a survey for you, gather those metrics, and then be able to create the validation of that coverage.
I think the security. We talked a little bit about the robot also being used for security purposes. And then put cameras in it, and then different. It started a discussion. Like people were like, "Yeah, but do you really want the robot to go everywhere with the camera? Like, do you want it to go to the washrooms?"
Well, I don't think it'll be able to open a door.
Yeah, so it was funny how everyone started to brainstorm about it. So.
Yeah, because it started generating a lot of different ideas, right? Now that there's a physical product here that they're testing, that Fortinet's testing, then now you start thinking about what other capabilities can this have? Like, what are the other use cases we could use a Forti robot for? And I guess the validation of the wireless coverage is a very good one, right? So you don't need someone to do it for you. Like, you can somehow give it a floor plan with the dimensions, and if it's got the sensors on there, maybe you could figure its way out, right? Like you can draw a path along the floor plan, and as long as it's scaled, they could just follow it and then give you the output, which would be the heat map. I mean, they have robots that do that now that will follow a path. I don't see why we couldn't do it with this robot as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we could use it in different scenarios in the future. If you just want to do checks like once every couple of months, once a year, you want to make sure your coverage is still good.
Yeah, just deploy the
robot. You could do something like that. Yeah, or if you have an issue and people are like, you know what, Wi-Fi is never working in this area, you'll be like, oh, okay, no problem. We'll send Forti robot.
You just have a fleet of robots in the office. So every time a ticket's submitted, that's your first line of defense. It just goes out there and validates it for you.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like a sci-fi movie, but...
See, we're already thinking of different ways to use this.
Yeah, and then it's big enough so you can put more Wi-Fi cards in it. You can put more sensors and all of that, right? So you could have one radio to do the validation, one radio to do some testing if you want to do some testing.
How big
maybe
is the
you can put a
robot?
spectrum analyzer.
Like when you guys looked at the Forta robot, how big was it? Like, what can you compare it to in size? Because I see the pictures on our show notes, but I'm unsure of how large this is.
So the picture, it's the 40 robot is on a couch, so you can gives you the size a little bit. So I would say it's maybe it's a round piece, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe diameters of 30 centimeters.
Okay.
Can you convert that in inches?
I got Google to do that for me.
I don't know. Maybe
that's about 11 inches.
11 inches, yeah. And then tall, it's about the same. Maybe I guess the same height.
Okay.
Now.
I mean, it's a start, right? You can start with something small, and then because I think having to do a robot do a validation survey from that low to the ground might not be ideal.
Yeah, so that was one of the concerns. Yeah. I think Dave was talking about that.
Yeah, but that could be easily fixed. I mean, this is just a prototype, but I think being able to see it produce something useful would be the first thing to do, and then take it from there. Because I remember we've all had this discussion about having drones do your survey for you, right? But this, I think, would be better because it's automatic, and you won't have a drone flying into somebody's face.
and also the issue with drones is battery life. Here you can put a big battery.
Yeah, exactly. And I know it's possible. At my workplace, there was somebody's kid was developing some robot where they were trying to build a robot that was similar to some of those other video type robots where someone can dial into this robot and it looks like they're there in person, and then they can control it and direct it where they want it to go. And this guy was creating his own version of that, and it was about like 5 feet in height. And I was like, oh, you can probably use this for a survey too, and just attach an antenna at the top and have it roam around, and you can control it remotely. But it relies on Wi-Fi, so if your Wi-Fi isn't good, then...
I think the size was a big discussion, because Manon was saying, if you put this in a campus, kids will just, steal it. It's small enough, so you can just pick it up and then leave the facility with it. And then Dave was saying, and then if you measure the Wi-Fi signal, you're going to measure the Wi-Fi signal at, half a meter height. That might not be the best location, that the best height you want to validate. And so Chris was saying, well, to fix both these issues, we can just make it bigger, so it's harder to steal. And then plus you can measure at a height. So that's definitely some stuff they might be changing. We don't even know if it's going to be a real product one day. When you look at it right now, it actually looks pretty good for a prototype.
Yeah, I think it's very doable. And Francois, I'll send you a photo of a mall security robot so you have some context. Because
thank you.
This happened. They have this now in Silicon Valley. I'm surprised you didn't see it when I took you to the mall when you needed your MacBook fixed.
Okay.
That's the exact mall where that picture that you're looking at. I said maybe we can add that to the show notes. That's the same mall we were in that has the robot.
Okay. So that's where they fixed my MacBook.
Yeah, and so a robot of that size, like a real a human size, and a robot that heavy, no one's going to pick that up and take it home.
It looks like the lady's gonna give it a hug. I'll add the pictures because people will have no idea what.
Yeah, we won't.
It's very podcast friendly what we're doing right now.
But I think it has a lot of potential. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, it has a lot of potential. And then, so that was the first innovation. The second innovation is an iOS application that they call Forti Explorer. And it's an iOS application that you could use to help monitor and manage Wi-Fi networks. So I think this will become a product because other people are doing it. But you'll be able to see, number of clients connected, maybe you'll be able to reconfigure your API on the fly from the application. So if you go out there, troubleshoot issues, you have something on your smartphone or tablet that will help you to get some sort of control of the Wi-Fi right there.
Yeah, I think if they can do that well, especially with the design and user functionality, that would be really great. And I'd be okay if it was just like an HTML page that formats to mobile devices, because I seem to like that better than dedicated apps. But we'll see what that looks like, because I think it's with a lot of vendors, the mobile ability to manage things is kind of lacking.
Yeah, it does exist, but it's not the best way.
No.
And then the last one is it's kind of like a trend in the industry, so I think they'll work on it as well. It's everything AI and ML related for Wi-Fi. So they're trying to use it for security.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so they're already using it on their security product line, all the AI and machine learning algorithm, and they're trying to see how they can, instead of reinventing the wheel, how they can reuse what they're using on the security equipment and then bring it over to the Wi-Fi product line.
Okay.
They just want to make sure it adds value. They just don't want to add it. They want to make sure that they can modify to add value to the way we manage and monitor and support Wi-Fi networks today.
Okay, that kind of makes sense.
So I think we'll start seeing some of this. I would guess in either the WLC or the WLM, the monitoring device we talked about earlier. I think that would make sense.
Okay. Very cool.
All right, so that was pretty much. Also, if you go in the show notes, you'll see that I added a couple of pictures. We got a tour of the office in Fortinet in I forgot exactly where it is, but it's close to where Roel lives for sure.
Sunnyvale,
and it's a pet friendly environment. So you see, I put a picture of a dog in the office, just chilling out there. I put a picture of the 40 robot. I put a picture of the all the APs. They have something that showcases their equipment, and also I put a drone footage of their equipment. That's just me playing around, so it's nothing professional. But you'll see, I did that as well.
Yeah. And before we end, going back to the APs and which type of controller they can join, as long as it's the universal access point, you can tie that to the integrated controller with the FortiGate. That'll also work with the FortiWLC, and that'll also work with their cloud version, their FortiCloud. So you do have a lot of functionality there. I did look it up because it was bothering me.
Okay, thank you, Roel.
So overall, what did you think about Fortinet? And we briefly talked about Wi-Fi, and they've got the Wi-Fi 6 access points. But what do you think about Fortinet when they show you the whole suite of applications or products?
I was very impressed on how they have like a very complete solution, right? Mm-hmm. And in my head, I was like, if I have a customer that needs, like a small network, supports everything, and I want it to be a not like a cheap solution where you buy Netgear and stuff like that, but like you wanted an enterprise solution. I was thinking that would be the perfect solution, because you can have a firewall, you can connect your APIs directly to the firewall, you can manage everything for a firewall. If you need VPN, you have VPN right there. If I need remote access, I have the cloud to support them, and that would make totally sense. To use their product line.
Yeah, exactly. I have one client that uses just their product line. They were looking at all different types of solutions, like from different vendors, and I said, if you look at Fortinet, they have every single one of those product lines, and it all integrates into your FortiGate. And they were even wanting to do like two-factor authentication. I don't know if Chris mentioned this in their presentation, but they do have two-factor, which ties
Forti
in,
token.
And what's neat is you get a few licenses with your FortiGate. I think you get 2. And so if you wanted to play around with two-factor authentication to your firewall, you can do that with your admin access. So I do that with my FortiGate, where if I log in, I have to provide even on VPN, like my VPN client, I use the Forti token, and then I was able to manage my Forti AP on my FortiGate. So yeah, everything's all integrated. Although the controller for the FortiGate's it's not like your full blown controller. It's pretty basic management, but it works, right? Just depending on your environment.
Yeah, and you could still have, I mean, if you have a bigger environment, you can still have a WLC and then have a dedicated controller for your APs.
Yeah, and you just
so it's
move
very flexible.
Yeah, that's what I like about their solution. I think with their security focus as well, they put security first, and so that's why I like Fortinet. And as long as they continue to do that R&D and put that focus on security, I think they'll do very well.
Yeah, and also like Chris is he has like a lot of he's very open-minded, right? So he's very receptive to all the comments that comes from us and from the community. So, and that it reflects a little bit in the work they do, right? They also try to be open-minded and see what they can do to improve their wireless solutions. Because obviously the Wi-Fi solution within the full Fortinet portfolio, that's not their main focus. Probably is the security side.
Yeah,
but they're still able to bring some good solutions on the Wi-Fi side as well.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
All right, so that's pretty much it for Fortinet. If you want to look at all the pictures, you can go to the show notes, so cleartosend.net/193, and I will be back next week for a brand new episode. In the meantime, if you want to share the episode, you can do that on your social media, and we'll be sharing the episode on Twitter and LinkedIn in the coming week. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you back next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.